I'm delighted to be here today to speak at the Animex International Festival of Animation and Games. My name's Emma Walker and I'm the Regional Manager for Auticon Scotland. My presentation today is focused on the benefits of having a neurodiverse workforce. I'll give a quick overview of Auticon, then briefly cover some of the neurodivergent conditions. Then move on to look at the cognitive profile of neurodivergent conditions and some of the challenges and barriers that neurodivergent people face, and the cognitive strengths. Finishing up by touching on the benefits of creating an inclusive work culture. So Auticon is essentially an IT consultancy with a couple of major differences. Firstly, all of the IT consultants that we employ, without exception, are autistic. And secondly, we're a social enterprise. This means that we have a social goal, which is to increase the employment opportunities of autistic individuals and promote their talent in the workplace. So the idea for Auticon was formed in 2007 when the founder, Dirk Müller-Remus's son, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 14. He was shocked at the very low rate of employment amongst those with autism. So, having a technology background, he established Auticon in 2011 with the help of a Munich-based social venture fund. Now, the main areas of focus for Auticon are within IT consultancy. Areas such as data analytics, software development, cybersecurity and quality assurance. Now we're a global organisation with 18 offices spread all over the world. We're in Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, America, Canada, Australia and of course the UK. The London office opened in 2016 and our Scottish office opened in March 2019. So worldwide we have circa 300 employees, of which more than 200 are autistic. So our mission is to provide rewarding employment to skilled autistic adults. And we do this by providing them with permanent contracts of employment and placing them into client teams that match their skills. The team then sees the value that the consultant brings in terms of their skills and their abilities, and in particular their different way of thinking, which changes their perception about autism. So we believe that this change of perception acts as a catalyst to bring more neurodiversity into the wider organisation. So we also provide education and training along the way to our clients so they feel more confident in managing a neurodiverse workforce. So I mentioned we're a social enterprise. The social issue that we're trying to address is the fact that only 16% of autistic adults are in full-time employment. Now compare this to 48% of disabled people that are fully employed. It's a really disappointing statistic, and one that we at Auticon are hoping to change. So with about 700,000 autistic people in the UK, many are missing out despite being highly intelligent, qualified and keen to work. There's a lot of terminology in the neurodiversity field, so it's useful to have a broad understanding around the more common terms that we use. So neurodiversity is a term that's widely used and refers to how we are all neurologically different and how we think, reason, learn, process information, express and interpret emotion. There's a neurodiversity movement which is growing in society, which suggests that the term neurodiversity is representative of the fact that differences in neurology should be recognised and respected as a protected social category, similar to ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender or disability. This stems from the idea that all of our brains are different and there isn't a normal type of brain or mind or one right style cognitive functioning. In this respect, neurodiversity has been used to shift the conversation away from seeing neurodivergent conditions such as autism and ADHD as a deficit or disability to now focusing on strengths and advantages that these differences can bring, particularly to the workplace. So if neurodiversity is the umbrella term for all brain difference, neurodivergence refers to specific conditions, each with their different traits and symptoms based on a medical diagnosis. So neurotypical is another common term and generally refers to non-neurodivergent individuals. But at Auticon we prefer the term non-neurodivergent. So the important takeaway here is to follow an individual in terms of the language they use about their condition and reflect that in your conversation. Now, neurodivergent conditions make up about 15% of the population in the UK, so that's 1 in 7 of us. This means it's highly likely that you already know or work with somebody with a neurodivergent condition, whether they have disclosed it or not. So the conditions are lifelong and are not sought to be cured. Their differences to be celebrated were their strengths. So each form of neurodivergence, such as dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD and autism, has a range of associated characteristics, and these can vary from individual to individual and change over time. Often neurodivergent individuals can have more than one condition. This is called co-occurring conditions, such as somebody having ADHD and autism. It's therefore important that people are not stereotyped according to the better-known characteristics. So if we look at our cognitive profiles, it's useful to think of it using a linear profile along a spectrum of strengths and challenges that we all face. Some may have better skills than others in all different areas, so we're all uniquely different. The difference between neurodivergent and non-neurodivergent individuals will be the significant gap between their different strengths and challenges. So a neurodivergent person's strengths could greatly outperform a non-neurodivergent person's, whereas their challenges may require some additional support. So the type of support, normally called adjustments, varies greatly and is very individual. It could be something simple as having a screen filter on your PC, or having the same desk location, or a work from home option. But however big or small these adjustments can be the difference between working effectively and productively, or not working at all. So non-neurodivergent individuals have significantly less difference between the strengths and challenges, as you can see on this slide. So the key impacts for neurodivergent people can be in areas of executive functioning, which relates to how we operate, doing everyday tasks involving things like planning and organising and prioritising actions, and keeping track of those actions without prompts. Also working memory and the demand to juggle new information as it presents itself. There can also be shared challenges in terms of how individuals experience their surroundings through their senses, where they can be more highly sensitive to bright lights, noise, temperature and touch. So for example, one of our consultants is super sensitive to touch and doesn't like shaking hands. It's as if their feedback mechanism of these sensors has been amplified, and without the ability to filter these out, which non-neurodivergent people can, neurodivergent people can feel completely overwhelmed and struggle to focus on the task in hand. But if we combine the strengths of our specialist thinking styles of our neurodivergent colleagues with the generalist thinking style of our non-neurodivergent colleagues, then we create neurodiversity, which can act as a seed for high-performing teams to create innovation and higher productivity. So how does an organisation go about making its workplace more inclusive for neurodivergent people? There will be challenges and barriers to overcome. We understand there can be fear from organisations and individuals about getting this right, with concerns over what could go wrong and not wanting to harm anyone. We are, after all, talking about supporting other people. So it's likely that your team or department already has someone on the autistic spectrum, somebody living with ADHD or working with dyslexia. So in order to get the best out of these people, they need to feel understood and supported. So neutralising stigma through neurodiversity training will empower these employees to disclose neurodivergence without fear. Many workplace issues stem from employees not feeling safe to disclose their differences. But early disclosure makes room for compassion and gives management the time to implement workplace adjustments as necessary. So the main challenges for individuals with autism relate to difficulties with social communication and interaction and specialist behaviours and interests. We have a rule book for how social interaction and communication takes place, such as initiating and ending conversations, picking up social cues, interpreting emotions, and understanding reciprocal communication. Those with autism don't have this rulebook. This leads to the social world being unpredictable and scary. Importantly, it's not that individuals aren't able to do these things, it's just not as intuitive. So as a result, a lot of autistic individuals have to expend a great deal of mental and physical effort to interact socially, which can be really, really exhausting. So at Auticon, we can help by using our long-standing niche experience from our own journey through the employment life cycle, hiring and supporting our own neurodivergent colleagues. From our time educating and supporting other businesses via our IT consultancy, and using the knowledge of our in-house neurodiversity experts. So some of the areas on this slide are typical barriers to employment, struggles that managers and teams have working with neurodivergent colleagues, and challenges neurodivergent colleagues have during employment and their everyday lives. So we can provide support and training to help increase understanding of all these areas, enabling you to harness the strengths and benefits of a neurodiverse workforce. Working with people who think differently has clear advantages when it comes to innovation and finding solutions to complex tasks and issues. If you continue to hire people that think the same, you'll always get the same results. So this impacts creativity, innovation, and ultimately growth. There are well-recognised areas where neurodivergent individuals often outperform those who are neurotypical, which can provide huge benefits and often competitive advantage to companies. So autistic people tend to be very logical thinkers, with a bottom-up, data-driven thinking style, free from bias of other people's points of view. They tend to think outside the box and often come up with completely different solutions to problems because they think differently. Creativity and innovation. They see information and patterns and ideas. They contribute diversity of thought to the workforce and enhance the potential for innovation. They have hyper-focus, concentration, and a detailed, focused mindset. This means they can sustain attention for long periods of time, and this lends itself to quality, productivity, and pattern recognition. So they won't be sidetracked by social media or looking at their phone or even a chat at the coffee machine when we do return to the office. They have unbiased and honest communication. They tend not to be biased by the need to adjust dialogue with certain social constraints. So you'll get honest, direct feedback, which is often based only on evidence rather than swayed by peer pressure or norms. They tell you how it is with no filters. They also ask lots of questions that others might not think to ask, or questions they might even be afraid to ask. They have long-term memory or retention of information, which may become invaluable due to the amount of information they're able to retain. They have good reliability and dependability. If they say they'll do something, you can be pretty confident that they will do it. And of course, careful attention to detail and accuracy, which is probably a great skill to have in all roles. Finally, they have perceptual reasoning. This is the ability to think and reason using pictures and visual information. It's the ability to see what is being asked, to understand and respond, and to organise information in one's head through images. So it's a great trait for innovation and problem solving, as they have the strategic high-level vision. So these strengths are seen as part of neurodiverse conditions, and quite often these strengths enable our artistic consultants to outperform those who are not neurodivergent. So in a nutshell, neurodivergent people deliver a unique advantage through measurable business impact. Just to give you a couple of examples, JP Morgan Chase have stated that their autistic consultants demonstrate 48% faster job performance and are 92% more productive. Neurodivergent employees helped SAP develop a technical fix that saved the company an estimated $40 million. And Australia's Department of Human Services reported that a neurodiverse testing team was 30% more productive than their neurotypical peers. So more and more companies are beginning to recognise this and are embracing the neurodivergent talent pool. And these cognitive strengths translate into specific roles, as shown in this slide, that our consultants undertake for our clients. The coloured bars representing higher cognitive capabilities autistic individuals have compared to non-neurodivergent individuals, which are shown in the grey bars. The key areas that we test for at Auticon as part of our assessment process for taking on new consultants are in the areas of logical analysis, pattern recognition, error detection, prolonged concentration, and attention to detail and accuracy. All great cognitive skills for the IT industry. So a great example of combining autistic talent with technical skills is Satoshi Tajiri, the father of one of the most loved video games, who shared his diagnosis of autism during the early 2000 interview. Satoshi was a bug collector during his early childhood and later discovered a passion for arcade games, playing Space Invaders for the first time. He co-founded a video games magazine called Game Freak and later decided to start developing games on his own. He developed Pokemon to honour his childhood memories of catching bugs, one of my son's favourites. So there's a well-documented skills shortage, which I'm sure is also impacting the games and animation sector. So it makes so much sense for organisations to be more inclusive so that they can tap into the unemployed or underemployed neurodivergent talent. So 47% of gaming and animation employers state that finding qualified applicants with tech skills to fill their roles has been a major hurdle. So if a company is successful in creating a genuinely inclusive work culture, it'll be better at attracting the talent that they need. In a recent Monster survey, 83% of Generation Z candidates said that a company's commitment to diversity and inclusion is important when choosing an employer. And according to Randstad's survey, Generation Z is set to comprise 37% of the global workforce this year. A great study by Deloitte cited research that found that organisations with inclusive cultures are 2 times as likely to meet or exceed financial targets. They're 3 times as likely to be high performing, 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, and 8 times more likely to achieve better business outcomes. So these benefits are the reasons 71% of organisations aspire to have an all-inclusive culture in the future. Yet, many organisations are still only aspiring and have not made significant strides to cultivate an inclusive culture. So organisation culture change is a steep challenge. However, the business benefits and the outcomes of an all-inclusive organisation, such as fairness and respect, value and belonging, safe and open, and empowerment and growth, should be compelling enough to push forward. So if you're interested in finding out more about how to make your organisation more neurodiverse, please get in touch. We'd be very happy to help. Thank you.
Hello there and welcome everybody. In this session, we are extremely fortunate to welcome Amy, Mandy and Fleur from Industrial Light and Magic. In this session, we're going to be talking about neurodiversity and how ILM are making adjustments to the workplace and how they support their neurodiverse staff. My name is Penny Holton and I'm a senior lecturer in animation here at Teesside, and I'm also a parent to 2 neurodiverse teenagers. So in this session, I'm going to be acting as a sort of interviewer and also take part in the discussion. So Amy, would you like to introduce yourself and your team?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Amy. I'm the Emerging Talent Specialist at Industrial Light and Magic London. I'm also the lead for our employee resource group called Enabled, which I will talk about in a little while. But really my role encompasses all things university partnerships, work experience, schools outreach, and also diversity. And that's one thing that we really care about in particular. So not just around neurodiversity and people with disabilities, but all aspects of diversity. So bringing more women into the workplace. We've got an employee resource group called Mosaic, which is to celebrate people of colour at ILM, and then also the LGBTQ+ community called DNA. So yeah, lots of great initiatives that we have going on at the moment. That's me, and I'm going to hand it over to Mandy now, who will introduce herself and her role.
Hello, I'm Mandy. I'm an animation lead at ILM. I'm actually one of the first female hired animation leads here at ILM, so that's progress. Woo. I started in animation when I was in art school in London. I went to St. Martin's actually to study graphic design, but I just ended up staying in the audiovisual department. and started animating away in a 2D studio. After I moved out and worked in Europe and slowly started working in visual effects as well, and have been in visual effects ever since, really. I've worked on all sorts of projects, from Marvel to Jim Henson type projects, adverts, children's programs, and now I'm working on things for the TV. So that's a really nice range of projects to work on. And yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Mandy. And over to Fleur.
Hey, I'm Fleur. I'm a production assistant at Lucasfilm. Or ILM, Lucasfilm, still the same, I guess. So I came in as a runner. I had work experience here, and then I got hired as a runner. I spent about a year working as a runner at the studio. So that kind of lets you see like all the different departments and stuff. It's really interesting. And then I went into production. So yeah, part of my job is like making sure everyone on the show, everything's organized, really, which can be a bigger challenge than others. I think sometimes depends what you're working on, but it's a good job and it's pretty fun. So yeah, I've been here just over a year now, and yeah, worked on a couple of really interesting projects so far. So it's all interesting.
So my first question is, so how did the enabled group come about?
Yeah, really interesting question. So I guess to kind of backtrack to more of our structure around diversity, we have something in place called DISCO, which is our Diversity and Inclusion Steering Group Committee at ILM. And that kind of is very much a global initiative. And Louise Hussey, one of our TV executive producers, is the chair of that. But Jess Teach is the global lead. And what that kind of is very much, yeah, like a proper structure within ILM of diversity, and from that kind of stemmed the key pillars. And to be honest, enabled really didn't kind of exist at that point, actually. And if I'm very honest, I pointed that out. I said, well, you know, we've got to all think about how diversity isn't just around gender or race, and you know, we're starting to do some great stuff in those spaces, but there was definitely a gap in the kind of neurodiversity and disabilities area, and I thought, okay, because for me, I've always felt like I'm different, and I always felt like I was neurodiverse, but didn't really know why and what it was. And during lockdown, just had this positive realization that I probably have ADHD, because all my best friends have it and we're all just very similar, and yeah, just kind of can gravitate towards the different things that it brings. And but I've never had an actual diagnosis, and I know that that's quite common with people, that they feel like they have something but not necessarily a diagnosis, because it's hard to label things. And so I just got chatting with the global group, and there was someone called Julie Kogura in Lucasfilm SF, San Francisco, who had already kind of kick-started that group over there. And so we partnered together, and yeah, we've just ever since just been meeting as a group. We put the radar out of like, anyone that wants to join this group, please, you know, come forward. We'd love to hear from you. We're always really careful and mindful that the space of, yeah, people that are neurodiverse and people with disabilities is sensitive, and so we don't want people to feel like they're kind of outing themselves by joining. So it's always just whatever you want to share, then share, but we're not gonna ask you to say why you're joining. And also, you know, a lot of people are like parents or children of people that have something, and so that they're equally valued and supported in that group, and have probably done a lot of training more so than me. So actually there's a lot of learning both ways. But our mission statement is we aim to create a sense of belonging at ILM in all areas of accessibility and varying abilities, and we impact the business through influence, education and outreach by celebrating, love that word, our employees' passion, knowledge, expertise and life experience. So that is us in a nutshell, and we're still quite early on in our group. We've got our launch with Sue very, very soon, our executive in charge. So hopefully, yeah, we'll yet to see many more members.
Great, that's really, really great. Fascinating. Okay, so I suppose that you kind of almost answered your question, but the second one is, so what have you achieved so far with Enabled, and what are your plans for the next step? How would you like to see it evolve?
It's funny because I feel like in this area, there's like so much to take on. You feel like, oh, you know, we can handle the world and be like superheroes, but actually there's so many different areas to cover. And just neurodiversity alone, you've got autism, you've got ADHD, bipolar, personality disorders, dyslexia, there's just, and many, many more to name a few. And so, and each one needs its care and research and us to really listen about what accommodations we can make. So we did an anonymous studio survey. So we surveyed the workforce in this area, and surprisingly, I think 17% of people came back as saying they were neurodiverse, which to me is pretty high, especially if people haven't got a diagnosis yet. And that's people that identify as being neurodiverse.
Yeah.
And of which dyslexia was the most common thing out of all of that. And makes sense because 1 in 10 people are dyslexic traditionally. So that's the area that we're focusing on right now. And our studio has just been fantastic at accommodating and listening to us. So we're trying to think about kind of different screens that people can have. We're thinking about making our interfaces more dyslexia friendly, changing fonts, just making people be a bit more aware about that, and actually asking for different types of equipment. So for instance, noise cancelling headphones. Never thought that maybe that was something the studio could get us, but now they've sent out a message, and because they're communicating, oh, by the way, folks, if you need anything for additional needs purposes, then we can still get that. So I think it's those messages of like that from the leadership down that's really powerful.
In terms of having neurodiverse artists and staff in the company, what benefits do you think that brings, having that difference around?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I love the question. I think, where do I start? I feel like neurodiverse people have so many gifts, and we see the world through a different lens altogether. So I think it makes people think outside the box. I know typically, I can't talk for the other areas, but for instance, ADHD, because I've been reading up a lot about it, we're very good at ideas, because there's all those ideas coming all of the time. So it can be quite exhausting. But the positive of it is like being really innovative and like entrepreneurial and ideas, you know, and it's like, actually you need those people in any team, because that's how you grow, and yeah, that you stand out from any other company or folks doing similar initiatives. I think as well, I think a different way of communicating. I feel as well, because we've been through quite a lot, you know, trying to find our identity. Maybe I know that, you know, I had a bit of bullying when I was a teenager. You know, you go through all of that, but then it helps you just have so much empathy for people. Like it can really help you become a really good leader in the end, because you know how to lead a team, that you accept a lot more different people, and you don't want anyone to conform to one style. And just working with these amazing women, I mean, they're just absolutely fantastic. Like Fleur is helping me with our emerging talent newsletter, and I'll let her talk more about her things, but That's just been so fun. And I just feel like neurodiverse folks, there's this different level of humour as well, because it can all be quite funny, and you're like, wow, this is really, really fun actually to talk about this and be so safe with each other.
And I suppose it's being, I know, because with my two, they are extremely funny, but they're also, as they become more confident, and my daughter's now at art college and she's found her tribe, that she can now be self-deprecating and laugh at herself, whereas before she was almost like, at secondary school, she was hiding herself and, you know, trying not to be bullied, but now she's just like gone, whoa, you know, I'm me, and it's wonderful. Sorry, I put it in there, I was too excited. Fleur.
No, that's good to hear, because that's definitely an important part of like growing up, as a part of many things. But yeah, so I mean, I help Amy with the newsletter, apart from other things, and I'm also colourblind, which is quite rare for a woman.
I think as well, like having people that are neurodiverse in the industry, it helps supervisors know that they just to be mindful of like different communication styles, because if you're like, this is the way and this is the only way, then it can make people feel really probably uncomfortable if they don't want to receive information in that way. So I think one thing that we're trying to ask anyone coming in is like, how do you learn best, and how do you want us to communicate with you? And I think those are the two really key questions that I don't know if we've really asked anyone before, you know, so we're just starting to try and ask that from day one, so that people don't feel like they have to have that huge conversation about things. Mandy, I know that you've had a very positive experience talking to supervisors about your things. Do you want to give some more details on that?
So yeah, sure. Me, I'm bipolar disorder type 2. So I've had this forever. I was diagnosed after university, and just sort of self-manage through it all. And at ILM, I had to tell my CG soup that sometimes in a client review, it's good to probably just prompt me and say, so this is Mandy's work, and she's been working on this character, and then that's my cue to say, that's my cue to say something, and then I'll jump in. It depends on my mood, I suppose, on that day. But he was very understanding. He was totally understanding of my way of communicating. But yeah, it's just good to be working with people who are, you know, supportive in how you work, and you can be honest and open about how you work. Yeah, I think it's unusual, but if it gets us to where we want to go, make cool projects, then yeah, all for the better.
What accommodations have been put in place to help with neurodiverse staff? And I think we kind of, but can you think of anything else that we haven't said?
One thing that I have just experienced today actually is we were running a student daily session, and there was an amazing chap who has Tourette's and was very open about it, and he was just amazing, and it just made me think, okay, we're always learning, and I love that. And so I think, as I said, we can't take on the world all at once, but I think as and when we meet different folks, and you know, we've got these kind of stories and strategies in place, then we can start to think, how can we accommodate different people? I know that Tourette's is quite rare with the one that he had, but just I think having those conversations with people that are neurodiverse and saying, if you were to come into our company, what would you need? And us like really listening and trying to accommodate. I think that's the way forward. Just being able to talk more about neurodiversity and disabilities, especially in my world of outreach. I get a lot of students sending me really positive messages after talks saying, I'm so glad that you've mentioned that, because you know, I've been thinking of the whole time, is does the industry, you know, is there a place for me? And now you've shown me there is. And so it can be quite emotional and quite enlightening, actually, getting those messages back saying, because you'd often think, oh, how am I making a difference? I don't know. I don't really see the big changes. But actually, it's when you get those messages and you think, goodness, like we've maybe completely transformed someone's life, like really impacted their career, to tell them that no, there is a place, and it's not necessarily super accommodating yet, but we're doing our absolute best to make it that way.
I don't think anybody should stop themselves from getting into visual effects if that's what they want to do. If I take myself for an example, I'm the first lead animator at ILM. It's a long time coming, but the first is a good start. I'm East Asian. My parents are from Hong Kong. I was born here in London. There's certain stereotypes that you have to break. I'm a full-time mum. And I was a single mum for a portion of that too. You know, always thinking about, am I considered capable as the male counterparts, you know? Can I give enough to work and to my child? And fourth, I have bipolar disorder. Just to throw it into the mix, just to mix it up. You can, you got to self-manage sometimes. You've got a lot on your plate, but never give up.
One question that we were really keen to ask you, Penny, is being a parent of neurodiverse children. I know that you're open to sharing a bit about that, and we'd love if you wouldn't mind just telling us a bit about that journey and the kind of things that you found, I guess, on the other side of, as being a parent and training. And
okay, so my children are now 16 and 14, and very early on, I mean, they were lively and funny and gorgeous, and when I appeared completely as neurotypical until they weren't. So we'd have things like meltdowns when they got something wrong. So if they were, if they got 9 out of 10 in the spelling test, that was the worst thing that could ever happen, because in their minds they had to be perfect. Or dropping something, or Emma would draw and she would draw and throw it away, draw and throw it away, and I'm going like it's just such perfectionists, and being able to cope in groups as well. So if there was too much noise, they would struggle, and so I think Emma was 9 or 10 before I started going through the whole diagnosis thing, because it takes a while for a parent to process that there might be something that need help, and then what could that possibly be? I actually thought it was ADHD for the longest time, actually, Amy. I was convinced that Emma had ADHD because she was just ideas, funny, just
well, I have the sensitivity as well, like the light sensitivity, and
Emma's very they're both very sensitive to sound, to the point where Emma had, because Emma was the oldest, she's gone through it all first, so she had hearing test, and she's found out you couldn't be more sensitive in hearing than her. She can hear everything. So if people are chewing or breathing, it can affect her, and it can really kick her off. So her school used to put her into headphones, just like industrial headphones, and now if she sees those, she kind of starts to get, I can't cope with her. She plays music now in class to stop listening to people doing things. I've had to forgive myself so much, and got them to forgive me for how I treated them when I first thought they were just being naughty. I could almost cry, the things that I've got cross with them for doing things which actually they just couldn't cope with the situation. I'm going, for heaven's sake. And the other thing, I suppose, is that you have to learn not to take, when they get worried about something, or so if I accidentally do something like chew, or if I say, because my children, you can't tell them off, you cannot get cross with them because they will just crumble. You have to do it with humor, and if occasionally I snap and they go, so I have to go and apologize, and I have to again sort of not take it personally. Do you know what I mean? So that I can go, that's fine, I'm a normal person, I got that wrong, but it wasn't my fault, because in the normal world it wouldn't be wrong. So I have to go, okay. And it's a problem for my partner as well, who's, you know, wanted to be more like, I don't know, in control. You're not in control. But it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And I wouldn't change them because they're so creative and funny and beautiful.
Yeah, I know, Penny, I know that you were showing me some diagrams actually the other day of like what of like the bucket
in terms of anxiety and the level that you operate on, just as you're normal. So can you imagine if this is all of the things that you have to cope with? Okay. Mm-hmm. So for me, on a daily basis, I'm like this, you know, I've got, I don't know, things I've got to remember. I've got my classes I've got to hit. I've got marking, in my case, marking I've got to do, but you know, I'm not too worried about it. I can kind of cope. Okay. Yeah, sort of. I'm all right.
Okay. Smiley face makes it all better.
So, but for my kids, or for people, you know, with different kinds of neurodiversity or anxiety, you know, sort of kind of get into mental health, you kind of operate up here. So you kind of, hang on. You know, you're kind of all right. But
that looks like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen next? Is anybody going to, am I going to get it wrong? And you know, all those things that you're worrying about. And so something happens, like, I don't know, you miss an appointment, you know, you realize that you had a Zoom or you had an interview or the dentist or something, and you've missed it.
Or something changes last minute.
Changes last minute. Someone comes in and goes, I don't like this, you know, this work's got to change. You really need to, you know, don't like your blocking and you've got to start blocking it again or whatever. Me, I'll go, okay, I'll probably go into this point. I can cope with it. It's a bit, I'm slightly anxious about it, but I'm all right. People with neurodiversity go, you know, it goes, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's been me. Sometimes when you get like constructive feedback, I've really had to know, oh my gosh, I can't have a meltdown about this because it's actually nothing to do with me. Yeah. You have to really like take your emotions out. And I think as soon as you can get that, you can see that, you can say, I see you, I see what this reaction is going to be. I only really was able to do that like last week for the first time ever, like stop me going over that edge. Like I got a new phone, for instance. I was saying to you, Penny, that change for me can be very hard, more than other people. And so getting a new phone and like trying to work it all out, it was like, oh my gosh, overwhelming. And don't even talk to me about these raised dots on the side. I'm like sensory overload. But I was like, okay, I could feel myself getting irate and like, oh, but I thought, no, I will be fine in a week. And it's like just taking you out of the situation and just saying, actually, I think this will be fine in a few days. And I've never had that before, but I was able to see that and have that as a tool in my toolkit, which is really, it's a big step, I think, when you can do that. Yeah, and I think it's become to understanding yourself that that's where you are, and that to forgive yourself when that happens, because you know that it's not your fault, it's just part of your makeup. And also to learn to cope with it if you can see that happening, and to go, okay, I know that I can see that that's going to happen. I need to do something to stop myself going over, and whatever that is, have your own coping mechanism, and also then to forgive yourself if you do, and to have other people around you if they understand it as well.
You know, you're supposed to avoid stress, right? That's impossible. And know your triggers, but you just have to work it out slowly. It took a long time for me to understand I was going this way or I was going this way, and try to get back in the middle. And then, once you know yourself a bit more, it becomes easier. But I'm 36 now, so it's taken quite some time. I'm still navigating all this. But you get there eventually. The more you know about yourself, don't go too far, don't dip too down, and try and stay in the midpoint. takes practice, but you will eventually get there. Just hang on.
I just think, you know, for students in particular that are watching this, I know how hard it must be to like actually say that you have something, and like you don't need to do that at all. But just know that I think, you know, which even in like interviews or application process, if that's something that you feel comfortable about, then, you know, I think we're just trying to dissolve that stigma a little bit with it, and we're training our managers more and supervisors on the importance of it. And like, I know that our executive in charge is just so supportive of it. I think she's got family with dyslexia, and so, you know, when people have that personal connection or hear leadership talking about it and how to help, then it, you know, like anything, like getting kind of more women into the workplace or people of colour, it's just the more people that are aware and care about it, then the better it's going to be. At the end of the day, it's not, what do we say here? It's not like neurodiversity. I know, Penny, we were saying it's not a disability, it's a difference.
That's right, yeah. And if being neurodiverse, you can bring so much to the table, so much to the conversation, that it makes you extremely valuable. It was like Elon Musk has just said that he has Asperger's, and he is, oh my gosh, just a whole different level of being an inventor. Yeah, and we do find that in terms of the courses that we teach, with the games courses, the animation courses, we do tend to have more neurodiverse students than, say, nursing or business. You know, I think this, it's very creative, animation and visual effects creative world does, I wouldn't say attract, but people who are neurodiverse tend to lean towards the creative industries more. I suppose it's because they've got creative brains. Brilliant.
I was trying to think, like, what would it be like if I didn't have bipolar? I think, I don't know if I would be in this field at all, actually. I don't know. It's very integral. It's hard to tell, because
you can't take it away, because it's who you are. It's not a thing you've got, it's who you are. Yeah, it's like everything, it's like your makeup, isn't it? And actually, I think, for me, I feel like we're all perfect how we are. The more you can voice that and be open, and, you know, it's the same thing as if you finally, you know, that you come out as being gay or bisexual, there's kind of that like relief that happens, and it's because you're being true to yourself, and that's so liberating. So I think I just remember being a junior starting at ILM, and how different I am a person now than I was when I started. It's been hugely enjoyable, and I really want to thank you all very, very much for giving up your time to talk to us, and hopefully that there'll be some people out there who have see themselves in you, or as people who are running companies going, aha, you know, give them some ideas. So we're going to be available in the Q&A after this, so if you want to come and join us, and if you've got any questions, we're going to be more than happy to talk to you.
Hello, my name's Jade Fuller, and I'm a Programme Manager at Ambitious About Autism. We are the national charity for children and young people with autism. As well as our education settings in London, we also deliver training to thousands of people a year, campaign to influence national policy, produce resources and toolkits to help families, and we have a youth network that provides support to young autistic people. I'm delighted to have a few minutes today to talk to you about why you should employ autism. To start, I'll hand over to some of our youth patrons who will explain in their own words what autism is.
Yeah, ready.
So am I looking at you?
You can't just start me off with a question like that.
Oh, could you edit that? That sounded awful.
Autism is like a long ruler, and everyone on the planet is a part of that ruler.
It's a neurodevelopmental condition, so it's something I'm born with, it's part of who I am.
I get quite easily overwhelmed with bright lights and noises.
It's difficulty in communication and
social interaction.
It feels as if neurotypical people were born with a manual about how to socialise, and I've only just become aware of it.
The problem is, the words they speak, normally it's hard to listen and keep up due to like accents or low voice, fast pace.
I feel like I'm in my own planet, and all of my life I've kind of had to travel from planet to planet, getting to know different kinds of people but never fully understanding them.
When I go to Waterloo Station with all the big crowds, it makes me stressed and angry at all the big crowds.
It can give us a unique perspective on the world and be able to look at information differently and see situations differently. I focus very easily on the things that I like.
I'm not necessarily very good at always coming up with things to say on the spot. And I don't know why I've said that, I'm really self-conscious about the fact that I'm speaking. But if I'm given time to kind of collect my thoughts and write stuff down, I think I'm getting quite good at writing and writing about autism.
You can't mix us all into one autistic label because we are all so different.
I guess I act very weird. I like that, and I'm not letting anybody stop me from being weird.
Small changes can make such a massive difference for us.
Really tiny adjustments, that can be the difference between them being able to take part and not being able to take part.
The best way to help us is to listen to our needs and pay attention to them.
We all have very different sensory needs, we have very different social needs and other things.
I want more people to understand that when I'm struggling.
Some space away from an overwhelming environment. I need someone to talk to me and reassure me that everything is okay.
One thing that people could do, be nicer to people who have autism.
We will need more time to do things, and that doesn't mean that we're not making a strong enough effort. If you're patient and kind, and if you read about autism and know what kind of condition I have, then it's very likely that our results, that the things that we make, are going to be a lot better.
To all of you who have autism, you are quite a lucky person because you're, well, 1 in a million, and you can do amazing things.
It's okay to be autistic.
It's a big part of who I am, and without it I'd be a different person.
We are passionate about helping employers to better recruit and retain autistic talent, and you'll see here that there are many business benefits of having a diverse workforce. More than 78% of autistic people aren't in any kind of paid employment, so there is a huge pool to draw from. And when those individuals are in your teams, they can make a real positive impact on the wider workforce as well, increasing morale, promoting diversity of thought, and encouraging creative problem solving. There is also the benefit of being able to reflect the diversity of both the clients that you work with and the communities that you operate within. What I also want to emphasise here is that employing autistic talent isn't just about ticking boxes, meeting corporate social responsibility targets, or doing something charitable. There is a genuine return on investment when you have a diverse workforce. So thinking about those individuals and what they can bring to your organisations. The skills and talents on here were actually compiled by a research team at University York St John, and we think it captures really succinctly how neurodivergent staff add value to a role and the team as a whole. Now, it's important to say here that not all autistic people will have all of these skills, but I imagine many of you would look at these and agree that there are areas you would look to recruit to and perhaps list as desirable on a job description. The challenge we have, though, is that for many employers, completely inadvertently, your recruitment process is putting off autistic people from even applying. So how can you change that? I just wanted to share a few tips or suggestions on how you could adapt your recruitment processes. The training that we offer does, of course, go into much more detail on these points and many others, but hopefully this will give you a few things to think about. First of all, use clear and jargon-free language in job descriptions and adverts. Make sure you're explaining the role using clear and literal sentences, and try and avoid clichés such as must be a great team player, especially if that's not really an essential requirement of the role. And thinking beyond the traditional interview, a task-based assessment might be a better way for an applicant to showcase their skills. But if an interview is your only option, then consider sharing the questions in advance to allow for proper preparation and a more effective discussion. And allowing time for processing information can make a huge difference. Many autistic people will benefit from a pause, giving them time to consider the question and then their response. The tendency to want to fill the silence can have a detrimental effect on the autistic person. Try leaving at least a 5-second gap before speaking again to avoid that information overload. And finally, inviting a conversation around adjustments, making it easy for someone to ask for adjustments that might help and for them to feel secure that this isn't going to go against them in any selection decisions. It could be as simple as providing extra time for a task or sending joining instructions that include photos of the building or the interviewers to help reduce the unpredictability of the situation. Just letting the candidate know that they can ask for these things can send a really powerful message. Those tips are just a snippet of what we can advise on and support organisations with through our Employ Autism programme, where we work with our employer partners to provide paid internships to autistic people. We speak to lots of businesses who want to understand more about how to attract autistic talent or support their colleagues. For some of them, it's about doing this more effectively. For others, they can be just starting out on their journey and want some support to make sure they can be confident to get it right. We're delivering this programme in regional networks right across the UK, building on the successes that our London programme has been having for almost 6 years now. And we're doing this by adding value to the existing networks and initiatives, making sure that we're not replacing or competing with a local office that might already exist. So for those employers who offer paid internships as part of our Employ Autism programme, they all undertake training to increase their understanding of autism and confidence in supporting colleagues. We've also developed tools and resources to refer to and help organisations make those adjustments to their recruitment processes going forward, and importantly, make it sustainable. Employ Autism is being independently evaluated. All the participants involved in the programme have a chance to input to the research, where we are capturing the experiences and the impact so that we can increase our reach and hopefully go on to replicate this practice more widely. And then there's the peer-to-peer connection piece. Not only is this a great way to promote your involvement, but it also provides opportunities to share learning and good practice across a range of organisations and sectors.
In this time of huge uncertainty and increasingly volatile economies, could a neurodiverse workforce be the answer? Are companies finally realising the value of this untapped talent pool?
Not all companies are the same, of course. They differ in makeup, they differ in objective, they differ in culture. What we find with the programme is that whatever the skill set, whether it be creative skills, whether it be technical skills, it can be very, very adaptable to the needs of that organisation. I think that's a very important thing for employers looking to get involved.
I wasn't too sure what to expect, but when Josh joined us, I was really surprised at the skills that he brought. He has a massive interest in development, a massive knowledge about the environment, the industry, more so than a lot of the candidates that we have here today.
We've all recognised that building that diverse culture and creating inclusivity within our workplace is not a CSR, a corporate social responsibility. It's something that's actually critical to our business success in the markets that we face today, but more importantly for our future business.
If I disclose autism on my application form, don't judge me before you've met me.
We don't want to be seen as a problem. Can you please focus on what we can do and not what we can't do? I want to be introduced as Theo, not as the new person with autism.
Understand how we could work together. Being treated equally is a basic human right.
We don't just want to volunteer. Pay us.
Our work with Ambitious About Autism has been really a great partnership, so I'd certainly recommend them to other companies that wish to go down that route.
I would recommend every employer to take part in this programme because it allows us to contribute to our community. It allows us to help individuals who are screaming for opportunities. One of the things I've absolutely learned is these individuals have something to contribute to any organisation.
If people are coming to work, genuinely motivated and they can be themselves at work, you get an extraordinary performance. And my advice would be get involved.
So that's it from me. Thank you for letting me share more about the work we do, and I look forward to answering any questions on this in the Q&A. If in the meantime you'd like to contact us to find out more about anything that we offer, then please do email us using the address on the screen now. Thank you.